Hey guys, I'm going to show you what I did about the throttle cable with the swap. The stock IS300 throttle cable is too short. Um, if you can kind of visualize, the factory IS cable normally rests about in this vicinity right here, and the 1J throttle body is the forward facing intake manifold. So um, obviously the length is incorrect. So what I ended up doing is this is off of a 94, I believe, 1994 Camry 2.2 liter 4-cylinder. It's a little bit too long. I was recommended to go with this one by another guy who had swapped his 1J IS. So it works. It totally works. It's the right size pin for where it inserts into the throttle body here. The length from here to here is just right. It's just the actual length of the cable is a bit too much. So what I ended up doing was where it connects is right here. It's just two 10mm bolts, or nuts, sorry. No, they're bolts, my bad. Two 10mm bolts that thread in from the inside of the cabin. And then, as you can see, it kind of loops up. Not really loops, but it kind of curls up. And all I did was I put it, after I installed it all, I put it where I wanted it as far as like the relation and orientation of the cable and how I wanted it to sit. And I just zip tied it to the thicker ABS line here. There's not much movement, there's no tension really put on this part, so I think that's okay. It's totally safe. Normally I wouldn't suggest mounting anything to your brake lines, but just to clean up the engine bay and keep the clutter down, I think it's safe. So yeah, when you go to install it, it's two 10mm bolts. I would highly recommend either keeping the battery plugged in so that you can still move the seat. My seats moved like all the way forward, so it really made the install really difficult because there's just not much space between the steering wheel and the front of the seat there. So keep that in mind. If you could take the seat out completely, that would probably be ideal, but it's kind of inconvenient. When you do the swap though, like I said, it's two 10mm bolts. And let me see if I can get the picture of it right there in the center. Yeah. Let's see if I can get the light situated. And it's just those two gold nuts up there, or bolts I should say. Maybe they're 12mm. I think they are 12. It's either 10 or 12. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, perfect. So you can see where it passed through the pedal. I pushed all of the spacing, the spacers and whatnot, towards the front side of the pedal to eliminate as much of the dead space as possible. You can see I have a zip tie right there. I'm using that as a shim because when I installed it, there was a little bit of slack about the width of that zip tie head. So all I did was I pulled it tight from that counterweight thingy at the end, pulled it tight, and then I stuck my zip tie in between as a shim and tightened it down. So as I pull it, it puts tension on the zip tie, which gets rid of that dead space. So as soon as I touch the throttle, it's pulling on that cable rather than pushing down on the throttle, eliminating the dead pedal, and then finally pulling it. I want as much throttle response as possible. But as you can see, it totally works. Yeah, it looks janky, but no one's gonna be down here looking at this, and as long as nothing breaks, you'll be okay. The zip tie shouldn't break. But yeah, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. It's just those two nuts. Sorry, bolts. I keep saying nuts. It's just the space is just so not ideal. You know, this was my workspace. Luckily, I'm a small guy, 5'10", 130 pounds. So I was able to maneuver myself in between the seat and the steering wheel, but I was upside down, uncomfortable. It wasn't fun. Honestly, it was more of a headache getting the throttle cable in than putting the whole motor in the engine bay, because I didn't pull the seat out or have it scooted all the way back. So just keep that in mind. It might be something you want to do to alleviate that problem ahead of time. But yeah, totally works.